The aroma of garlic and rosemary roasted chicken filled our suburban home, a scent I knew Michael loved more than any expensive cologne. Outside, the late October evening was settling in, painting the Illinois sky in shades of bruised purple and orange. I wiped my hands on my apron, my heart doing a nervous little tap dance against my ribs. This wasn't just any birthday dinner. This was the night I would give my husband a gift that would change everything. Michael and I had been married for 12 years. They were good years, filled with a comfortable rhythm of dual careers, shared mortgage payments, and a love that had deepened from passionate blaze to a steady, warming fire. He was a good man, a reliable man, a project manager who could orchestrate a multi-million-dollar construction project but couldn't seem to build the bridge back to his own old passions. I missed the man who would strum his Gibson acoustic on our dilapidated college couch, his eyes closed, lost in a world of chords and melodies. That guitar had been silent for years, collecting dust in the corner of his office, a monument to a dream he said was unrealistic. His 40th birthday had felt like a milestone, a pivot point. A week ago, over lukewarm coffee, I'd asked him what he wanted. Oh, honey, don't go to any trouble. Maybe some new tools for the workshop, or a nice dinner with you and the kids is plenty, he'd said, his smile genuine but his eyes distant. He was already mentally scrolling through work emails. That distant look was what sealed it for me. It wasn't tools he needed. It was a piece of himself he'd left behind, and I was determined to give it back to him. The plan was audacious, logistically terrifying, and by far the most expensive gift I'd ever orchestrated, second only to the used sedan we'd bought together last year. It involved secret phone calls, drained savings, and a white lie I'd been nurturing for a month about a mandatory work seminar I had to attend for a weekend. The guilt of that lie was a small cold stone in my stomach, but the hope of his reaction was a roaring fire meant to melt it away. The front door clicked open at exactly 6:15 p.m. Honey, I'm home. Michael's call was the same as every other evening, a little tired, a little worn from the commute. In the kitchen. I called back, quickly untying my apron and smoothing down my simple blue dress. He walked in, dropping his briefcase by the door. He looked his age tonight, I thought, with a pang of tenderness. A little gray at his temples, lines of permanent concentration etched between his brows. But he was still my Michael. Something smells incredible, he said, wrapping me in a hug that still felt like home. Happy birthday. My love, I whispered into his shoulder. We ate by candlelight after the kids, Emily and Jake, had been shuttled off to a sleepover at my sister's necessary part of the plan. We talked about their school projects, his latest work crisis, the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom. It was all so normal, so beautifully, deceptively routine. Inside, my nerves were a tangled ball of yarn dot after dessert, his favorite. The decadent dark chocolate torte. He leaned back in his chair, patting his stomach. That was perfect, Sarah, really, thank you. This was all I wanted. I took a deep breath, my fork clinking softly against my plate. Well, the night isn't over. I have your gift. He chuckled. Sarah, you didn't have to. Dinner was more than enough. This is different, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small, clumsily wrapped box. It was a deliberate misdirection. Let him think this is it. He took it, a warm, familiar smile on his face. He tore the paper away to reveal a generic-looking black box. Inside, nestled on a bed of cotton, was a single brass key. He picked it up, turning it over in his fingers. Confusion clouded his features. A key. To what? Did you buy me a new toolbox? He looked around, as if expecting a giant toolbox to materialize in the dining room. Not exactly, I said, standing up. My legs felt like jelly. It's for the front door of a place we need to be. Right now? Right now? Sarah, it's almost 8:30 on a Friday. I was looking forward to putting my feet up and maybe watching the game. Please, I said, my voice soft but firm. Trust me. Just get in the car. The drive was tense, filled with a silence that was unusual for us. Michael stared out the passenger window at the passing streetlights, his profile unreadable. He was a creature of habit, and I was disrupting his carefully ordered universe. I prayed I wasn't making a huge mistake. Instead of heading towards the mall or restaurant district, I navigated towards the older, more artistic part of the city. The buildings changed from generic strip malls to converted warehouses with colorful murals. I pulled up in front of a nondescript brick building with a simple, illuminated sign that read, "The Velvet Note, a jazz club." Michael asked, his brow furrowed. "We haven't been to a place like this in years." "I know," I said, my heart hammering. "Come on." I led him inside. The interior was exactly as I'd remembered from my secret reconnaissance mission, dimly lit, intimate, with a low stage at the front and small, round tables covered in dark red cloths. The air smelled of old wood, whiskey, and anticipation. A few people were already seated, their conversations a low, respectful hum. "Sarah, what is this?" Michael whispered as I guided him to a small table near the back. Before I could answer, the club's owner, a man named Marcus with a magnificent graying beard, caught my eye from across the room and gave me a subtle nod. The main act was about to begin. The house lights dimmed further, and a single spotlight illuminated the center of the stage. A man walked out, holding a saxophone. He was followed by a bassist and a pianist. They settled into a smooth, classic standard. It was lovely, but it wasn't the point. Michael listened politely, tapping his finger on the table, but I could see he was still confused, wondering why his quiet birthday night had been hijacked for a jazz set. After 3 songs, the saxophonist stepped up to the mic. Thank you. You've been a wonderful audience. We've got a special treat for you tonight. We have a guest performer who's joining us for a couple of numbers. A very talented guitarist who's been away from the scene for a while. Let's give a big Velvet Note welcome to Michael. Michael, who had been taking a sip of his water, froze. His eyes, wide and disbelieving, shot to me. I just smiled, tears already starting to prickle at the corners of my eyes. I nodded toward the stage. "No," he breathed, the word barely audible. "Sarah, no. I can't." "You can," I whispered back, squeezing his hand. "The key wasn't for a door. It was for this. For you. Now go." He looked from me to the stage, where the house guitarist was holding out a beautiful, vintage Gibson, similar to the one he had at home. The audience was clapping, a warm, encouraging sound. It was the most terrifying and beautiful thing I'd ever orchestrated. Slowly, as if in a dream, he pushed back his chair. He walked to the stage, his movements stiff with shock. He took the guitar, strapped it on, and stood before the microphone. He looked out at the small crowd, then his eyes found mine in the darkness. The fear in them was palpable. Then something shifted. He closed his eyes, took a deep, centering breath, and when he opened them again, the project manager was gone. In his place was the man I'd fallen in love with in a crowded college pub 20 years ago. He nodded to the bassist, counted them in softly, and his fingers, those same fingers that typed reports and fixed leaky faucets, found the strings. The first chord he struck was clean and resonant, filling the small club. It was a blues progression, something simple but deeply soulful. He didn't sing. He just played. And he was magnificent. He wasn't just playing notes. He was telling a story of long commutes and quiet compromises, of dreams shelved for 401 kiloseconds and parent-teacher conferences. The melody was wistful, longing, but as he moved into the second song, an intricate, finger-picking piece I remembered him writing for me when we were first dating, it transformed. It became a song of remembrance, of joy, of a love that had endured. I saw tears in the eyes of a couple at a nearby table. I was openly crying, my hand pressed to my mouth, my heart swelling with a pride so fierce it felt like pain. He played for maybe 10 minutes. It felt like a lifetime in a single fleeting second. When the last note faded into a perfect silent stillness, the club erupted. The applause was thunderous, genuine. He stood there, blinking under the spotlight, a dazed smile spreading across his face. He looked alive, truly vibrantly alive. He handed the guitar back, shook the hands of the band members, and walked off the stage. He didn't stop at our table. He walked right up to me, pulled me from my chair, and wrapped me in an embrace so tight I could feel the frantic, joyful beating of his heart against mine. "I can't believe you did that," he whispered into my hair, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't believe you did that," I choked out. Laughing and crying at the same time, we drove home in a different kind of silence. This one was warm, electric, filled with unspoken words and rediscovered possibilities. He held my hand the entire way, his grip firm and sure. When we walked through our front door, the familiar surroundings seemed new. He went straight to his office and came back holding his old Gibson. He didn't put it in the corner. He placed it on a stand right in the middle of our living room. He sat beside me on the couch, not turning on the TV. How did you even arrange that?" he finally asked. "A lot of phone calls," I said, leaning my head on his shoulder. Marcus, the owner, was